I showed my husband the proof gathered by the detective agency. He admitted Daniel and I were having an affair. I'm crazy about her. I'm going to be with her, and you're going to leave. Are you sure about that? I challenged. I don't care what will happen, he replied. My name is Amelia. I'm a 37-year-old office worker. I live with my husband, Tom, and our 5-year-old daughter, Flora. We're pretty close and complement each other well, making up for each other's deficiencies. For the time being, we are happy as a family. My husband is a good cook and always makes dinner for us. I work a lot of overtime and come home late, so I'm grateful that my husband is able to take care of the housework. Then, one day, my husband unexpectedly injured his ligament. The cause of the injury was that he was playing basketball for the first time in a while when he went out with his friends on a day off and forced himself to shoot the ball. My husband is 5 years younger than me, but he is already 32 years old. No matter how good he used to be at basketball, he had hardly done any exercise since he started working. Why would he do something reckless like this without thinking about it? He has a job and a child to consider, yet he's not careful at all. When we were dating, his recklessness felt new and fresh to me, but now it just comes across as a negative trait. In fact, my husband has been hospitalized as a result of this injury, which means he has to take time off work, and I would have to take care of the housework and our child. On top of that, he got hurt playing basketball on his day off. It wasn't even on a basketball court, his injury happened at a facility for various sports and games. The company would be appalled to find out about it. They might even fire him in the worst-case scenario. My husband is just too stupid and careless. This time, I was really angry with him. I was disillusioned by his behavior. I've said it many times, but he has no sense of responsibility as an adult. According to the doctor's diagnosis, he needs to stay in the hospital for about 2 weeks. I brought him a change of clothes, a phone charger, and the basic necessities. "Oh, thank you, Amelia," he said, cheerful despite everything. I was disgusted by my husband's reaction. Why was he so cheerful? Normally, he would be more depressed. Well, what can I do? I didn't mean to get hurt. Besides, I'll use my paid vacation days, so it'll be okay, he explained. What do you mean it'll be okay? If it wasn't for your injury, you could have used your paid time off more effectively, like for our daughter's kindergarten event or a family trip. That's what the paid vacation days are for. Besides, since you can't come to work, your coworkers and bosses are going to have to take on more work. As for our daughter, I'm glad my mom agreed to come home and take care of her this time, but if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have been able to work overtime at all, and I would have troubled people at my work. You should be aware of the problems you're causing everyone. I guess I was really angry after all because these complaints came out so easily from my mouth. My husband seemed to feel bad about it and said, "I'm sorry." Well, maybe I went a little overboard myself. At any rate, get better as soon as you can, I said and left the hospital room. With or without my husband, my work is very busy. I was going to ask my mother to take care of my daughter a little longer, but when my boss and coworkers found out my husband was in the hospital, they told me I didn't have to work overtime. Thanks to them, I was able to leave work on time. I could come home early, cook dinner, and have time to eat with my daughter. I didn't have to rely on my mother too much either, so I really appreciated the kindness of the people at work. About a week after my husband was hospitalized, I met up with my mother and daughter after work and went to visit him. When we arrived at his hospital room, I heard him laughing happily with a woman's voice. Oh my God, Tom! Who could it be? I wondered if she was my husband's colleague or junior colleague at work. When we entered the hospital room, there was a nurse there. She looked young, maybe in her early 20s, slim, and quite beautiful. "Oh, there's your wife and your lovely daughter." "Well, I'll leave you all," the nurse said. "Hello, gave us a quick bow, and left the room. While I'm busy with everything, you're chatting with a beautiful nurse so carelessly. My husband must have noticed my cold stare because he clearly seemed nervous. Hey, thank you all for coming, he said, trying to diffuse the tension. But thanks to my daughter, my husband didn't have to be scolded by me. Hey, Dad, my daughter exclaimed, hugging him and looking very happy to see him for the first time in a week. Flora, I missed you so much. Is your leg okay? She asked. Now that you're here, Flora, it's going to be fine. So, you'll be home soon. Yes, I will. Yay! Since my daughter seemed to be happy, I decided to leave the scolding for another time. After our visit, my mother blurted out to me, that young nurse was calling his name in such a friendly way. That's right, I thought. Now that she reminded me, it sounded even intimate. But I could not imagine that my husband would have the nerve to do anything with a beautiful young nurse. Well, I mean, she wouldn't even care about him. But it sure wasn't completely out of the question. They say nurses don't get to meet many men. Maybe she's quite a predator. Finally, 2 weeks after my husband's injury, he was discharged from the hospital. On the day he was discharged, I went to his hospital room, and he was talking happily with that beautiful nurse again. In the car on the way home, he looked so bored. I would think that he would be happy to get out of the hospital. I thought this was suspicious, so I decided to hire a detective agency to look into it. The evidence of the affair between my husband and the beautiful nurse came out immediately. After he was discharged from the hospital, he went to the hospital after work because he had to go to rehabilitation. But in fact, that was not the case. His leg was already healed, so he lied about the rehabilitation and went to the nurse's house. I couldn't believe it. How on earth would my husband have an affair with that beautiful nurse? Do beautiful nurses have a weird taste? I confronted my husband with the evidence from the detective agency. And he admitted, yes, I'm having an affair. I'm crazy about her. I'm going to be with her, and you're going to leave. I really don't care what happens. I'm in love with her. Okay, do what you want. This is ridiculous, I replied. I packed my things, took my daughter, and went home to my parents. When I explained to my mother what had happened, she was furious. I knew it was suspicious, she said. You're very sharp, Mother, I responded. After that, I divorced my husband through a lawyer. I demanded alimony and my share of the property. We had a bit of a dispute over the property division, but I managed to get what I wanted and received the money I deserved. With this, I thought I was completely disconnected from my husband and could start a new life with my daughter. However, as my new life started, I began receiving calls from an unknown number. At first, I ignored the calls, but they were so persistent that I decided to answer. Hello. Finally, she picks up, a voice said. Hey, you, what's going on? Who is this? I asked. I'm Rose, Tom's new wife, the voice replied. Oh, the adulterous partner. What do you want? You demanded an unbelievable amount of alimony and property from my husband, Rose said angrily. No, I had a lawyer come up with a fair amount, I replied. Then why does he have to sell the house to pay for it? She demanded. That's because his salary is low, I explained. Huh? How can it be low if he works for a foreign-invested company? She asked, confused. What are you talking about? I'm the one working for a foreign-invested company, not him, I clarified. What do you mean? Rose asked, shocked. I'm sure my husband lied to you to look good. He probably incorporated details from my job into his conversations with you. My husband is a regular employee of a small company. His salary is quite low, about half of what I make, I explained. Oh no, that's a scam. I approached him because he said he worked for a foreign-invested company and owned the house in his name, she said, horrified. The house is in our joint name, and by the way, I made the down payment. So if my husband continues to live in the house after the divorce, he'll have to pay me half of the house's appraised value, I said. Oh no. He's not handsome and doesn't even have the money. There's nothing attractive about him, Rose realized. Well, I guess not attractive enough to have an affair with, I replied. He was a good dad, though. I don't care if he's good with kisses. I got cheated on, I said firmly. I'm sorry to hear that, but you better pay your alimony too. Otherwise, I'll take immediate action. After that, I received a call from my ex-husband protesting. Apparently, he had been dumped by his adulterous partner. Just before they were about to get married, she ran away. But he was the one who tried to seduce a beautiful nurse by lying to her and trying to look good to begin with, so it's his fault. I told him, if you have a problem with the alimony, try to earn as much as I do first, and then I hung up the phone. Since then, I see my ex-husband only when my daughter wants to see him. He whines every time he sees me. I heard that his injury from playing basketball caused a lot of trouble at his work. His boss hates him for that, and he's never going to get promoted in the future. He really deserves it. I, on the other hand, am back at home and working hard while my parents support me in raising my child. This allows me to save money for my daughter's education and take weekend trips with my family. I was worried that the divorce might have a negative impact on my daughter, but she still smiles sweetly as ever. I will continue to work hard to keep her smiling.